It was about 50 million years ago that volcanoes, erupting from the seabed, created the island of Komodo, with barren mountains towering 2,000 feet. Now part of Indonesia, and about 300 miles east of Bali, Komodo is an arid land, apart from forested valleys and coastal mangrove swamps. And in those valleys and swamps, and on a few outlying islands, are animals that come straight out of mythology. And for the past 7,000 years, people have lived there too, but they seldom venture inland. It was when the ancient Chinese visited these islands in the 12th century that the outside world first heard of an awesome creature that slept in secret lairs. But not until early this century did scientists even attempt to investigate the stories. What they found was exactly what had been reported. Fearsome predators, twice the size of a man. The world's largest lizards, the dragons of Komodo. In a forested valley, a mile behind the coastal village, it's dawn. A Komodo dragon, 9.5 feet long, emerges from his lair. He has spent the cold night in the shelter he's dug in a dry riverbed. But even so, he has lost a lot of body heat and his movements are sluggish. Before he can be more active, he needs to walk to a sunny spot. The dragons are Komodo's only large predators. They take the place of the tigers, leopards, or bears found on continents or other islands. There were saltwater crocodiles here once, but people have hunted them to extinction. The dragons were not hunted because they have bony skin that's no good for leather, and they taste terrible. The reptile is big enough and fierce enough to kill any animal on Komodo, if it's warmed up and primed for a surprise attack. But it's too early in the day for this one to be ready, and the Rusa deer is safe. In fact, this male is heading for another kind of rendezvous, with a female. But as male and female Komodo dragons look very much alike, he needs to sniff her first, with his tongue. He approaches gingerly. He takes his time to reassure her while he gets close enough to be sure it's his female. He's formed a permanent bond for life with her, but every time they meet, he has to reinforce his commitment in preparation for the mating season. Now he's reached the place where she has special scent glands, and he knows for sure who she is. It's important for him not to make a mistake. A female could kill a male she isn't familiar with. The problem with this male is that he just hasn't warmed up enough. He's wasting her time. She might as well find something to eat. He's cold-blooded and needs to raise his body temperature by at least 10 degrees, so he looks for a sunny spot. 2 hours later, the island is fully awake. The female heads towards the mangrove forest. At low tide, she might find some fish stranded on the mud. But mud skippers are able to escape by hopping away from her. And crabs can do a disappearing trick. Dragons eat whatever comes their way, dead or alive. This fish snack will last her a few hours. She finds her food mainly by smell. She can tell there's something across the water, but it means a dip. Dragons show no fear of water. Swimming is easier than picking her way through mangrove roots. It's only a small scrap of food, but worth the drenching. She needs to rest now as the sun beats down on the mangrove forest. The male dragon is warm enough to walk a mile to the edge of Komodo village. He regularly patrols this hill, looking for a goat that may have strayed from the herd. This is a good position for an ambush. But the goats spot him. The small community of 1,000 speak their own dialect. Here, the dragon is called Ora. The reality of living in a land of dragons is never far away. Auras have been known to enter the village, ambush and kill people. Towards the middle of the day, it is too hot on the hillside. The male dragon heads for a waterhole in the shady forest. Now he needs to cool down. If his body temperature rises even a degree or two over 108 degrees Fahrenheit, he can overheat and die. Rusa deer are already drinking. It's the dry season, and for 9 months there are only a few places on Komodo where fresh water can be found. He has to drink and then either rest in the shade or go back to his burrow for a while. The deer are very aware of his presence. But when there is so little standing water, animals that would normally choose to avoid the dragons have to take risks. but he's still too hot. He needs to lie down and rest in the shade. In the whole day, he can only manage 3 hours of activity. More deer arrive at the waterhole for a drink. They walk nervously past the resting male. He weighs 250 pounds and could run at 20 miles per hour to ambush them. A wild pig family arrives for a reviving mud bath. They have more bravado. Zebra finches also enjoy a splash. It is late afternoon, and the temperature is still over 100 degrees. The female is resting in the cool of a limestone cave. This has been her home for some time. Scattered across the cave floor are the remains of feasts she's dragged into her lair. This is also where she will bury her eggs when the time comes. Komodo dragons guard both eggs and nests during the first part of the incubation period, which lasts a total of 8 months. She returns to this cave each year to lay her eggs, and the floor is marked by her tracks. She shares her secret lair with fruit bats found only on these islands. They will be additional guardians, alerting her if other dragons enter the cave to dig or to eat her eggs. As darkness falls, the bats stream out on their nightly foray. They flood the skies as they search for ripe fruits in the trees. Before the sun gets too high, the male starts his day with a trip to a favored stretch of beach. Komodo village fishermen clean their nets from the previous night's trip and throw scraps into the sea. The dragon drools in anticipation of its meal. This saliva, in fact, can be deadly. In it are 4 strains of bacteria so virulent that if a deer manages to escape with only a bite, it is just a few days before it's weakened with infection. The dragon will stalk it until he can launch a second, fatal attack. It is the female's time to hunt, and she smells something in a tree. A baby Komodo dragon. It's only 3 months old and will spend its first 2 years living in the trees, eating mostly insects. Dragons are cannibals and have no compunction about eating eggs or young of their own species. But, luckily for the youngsters, adults are too heavy for tree climbing. Not until its 3rd year will it be 5 feet long and fast enough to run away from adults. By midday, more animals are crowded at the waterhole and tension is mounting. To defend their drinking place, the deer force the pigs off. The pig can smell the male dragon. He's come to drink again. The deer are tense. Dragons are known to kill pigs, but only when they can surprise them. At all other times, the dragons are actually wary of the pigs because of their fiery tempers and small, sharp tusks. One pig comes too close and is taught a lesson. Now he's agitated and more dangerous. Most of the deer sense it. His lunge at a sitting deer only narrowly misses. He's lost a meal and heads off to rest in the shade. His female is approaching, looking for the shade of the forest too. All of a sudden, he's more interested in chasing the female. It's the start of the mating season, and all his energy is now concentrated on wooing his female with gentle strokes. With claws that could easily rip her open, he pulls her underneath him. She will only accept him if he completely dominates her. It looks as if he's missed his opportunity again. He makes one last dash, and she finally has to submit. If the mating was successful, she will start to lay her batch of eggs in the cave in 2 weeks' time. She could lay as many as 30 eggs, but only a small number will survive. Content at last, the male dragon lies down to rest. The future of the dragons of Komodo is secure, even though they live nowhere else in the world. These few islands in Indonesia are protected as a national park and biosphere reserve, allowing these giants from a prehistoric age to continue to reign supreme in their hidden kingdom.